Hello, 6th grade, and happy Monday. Please follow along to this video about independent and dependent variables in math. You might have heard the terms independent and dependent variables before in science class, and in math, they're really similar. Let's try to understand what these mean through an example. This example says a soccer team is holding a car wash to raise money M. They are charging a rate of $10 for each car C that gets washed. So in this situation, I have two variables. I have M, which represents the amount of money raised, and C, which represents the number of cars. Let's look at this in a chart. I call this an input-output table because the money here is the output that changes based on the number of cars. So for example, if I had one car, well, I would earn $10. Two cars, $20, so on and so forth with three, and we could keep going. In order to determine which of these two variables, the cars or the money, is the independent or the dependent variable, I want to think about the relationship between these two. Every time I add another car, I get $10 more. So I can represent this with an equation. The money, M, is equal to 10 times the number of cars, right? So if I have 3 cars, I can multiply that by 10 and I get $30. In this situation, the number of cars is the value that we get to control. We get to determine how many cars are being washed. Because we have control over this, we call it the independent variable. Now, the money depends on the number of cars, right? If I only wash 2 cars, I'm only going to get $20. But if I wash 5 cars, I'll get $50. So because the money raised depends on the number of cars, we call it the dependent variable. Here are the definitions that you should remember. The independent variable, also sometimes called the input, is the value that stands alone. It doesn't change depending on the other variables because we, as the scientist or the mathematician, have control over it. The dependent variable, or the output, is the one that changes based on the independent variable. Here's our same example of the soccer team and our equation. Now let's take a look at this little machine. So in this machine, I put in my independent variable, then something happens to it inside of the machine, and my dependent variable comes out. So in this case, I know that my independent variable, or my input, is the number of cars. For any number of cars, I can multiply it by 10, and I will get the money earned as my output. Let's look at one more example together. Raymond is charting the height of a plant he is growing as a science experiment. The plant grows 2 inches every day. So we can go ahead and fill out this chart. After 1 day, the plant will be 2 inches, then 4, and so on. Let's think about here, what is the independent and the dependent variable? Well, the height depends on the day. Therefore, the height is going to be our dependent variable, and the day is the independent variable. So as mathematicians or scientists, we can control the number of day, and that day is going to impact the height. An equation I could use to represent this is that the height is 2 times the day, right? So if I multiply any of these days by 2, I will get my height. And looking at my machine, I know that my day is my input. I'll multiply that day by 2, and voila, I will get the height. So my independent or variable, or my input, goes into the machine. I have a rule here, and my output comes out. This is the dependent variable.